Bruno disappeared and left behind him a very unusual scene. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please do subscribe, and if you're old here, hello again. My name is Kate Philpott. This is Sandy, back due to popular demand. Today I'm going to be covering a solved case for you, and Kendall Ray actually did a video on this case when it was unsolved, but since she's put that video up, it has been solved. And I mean, even still, it's one that it's so unusual, so nothing like anything I've ever seen before. So I definitely wanted to talk about it, and there's definitely still a lot of discussion that can be had on it. So this is the case of Bruno Borges. Bruno was a 24-year-old Brazilian psychology student, and I have seen some sources say philosophy, and I've seen psychology as well, so one of those. But on the 27th of March 2017, Bruno disappeared and left behind him a very unusual scene. Before I get into the scene he left behind, I'm going to just talk a little bit about Bruno. So Bruno was described as intelligent, he was a born leader, he read a lot of books and a lot of quite heavy books. He actually had read around 1,000 books, like Shakespeare's works, the Bible, stuff like that. And his mother Denise actually said that he would read too much. He would also help out with people that were excluded from society in some way, so you can kind of gather the type of person we're talking about here. According to Denise, Bruno never had any psychological issues. However, when she would stumble across the scene he left behind, she would be terrified. Prior to his disappearance, Bruno's bedroom was locked for a 22 to 24 day period. I've seen different sources say different things. And during most of this, his parents were away on like a long vacation. And also during this time, one of Bruno's friends reported that he didn't think Bruno ate anything over these 22 to 24 days. So Bruno obviously explained to his mom what he was doing. He said he was working on a project, and he also needed some money so that he could work on it properly. And she said, okay, maybe if you tell me what the project is. But Bruno said no, because it was a secret. But he did also ask her if he could stop going to work and everything while he was working on this project, because it was so important to him. And she said, okay. They did consult a doctor first, and she kind of was just checking that he was all good. Doctor said, cool, go for it. And that was that. So he had obviously been very convincing in explaining the importance of the project. And later on, Bruno's mom would go on to discover that Bruno borrowed the equivalent of $6,000, obviously in Brazilian currency, from his cousin. Obviously this cousin deeply believed in him and what he was doing. So obviously Denise was like, what's going on with my kid? So she tried to pry a little bit more and get a little bit more information from Bruno, and all he said was that he was working on writing 14 books that would change humanity for the better. And also during this time, Bruno had gone to a dressmaker and requested 3 cloaks. And when the dressmaker asked him, are these cloaks for church? He said, almost that. So it's quite interesting. Things are just getting weird already. So then the day arrived where Bruno Borges disappeared. And this is what they found when they gained access to his room. They found 14 encrypted manuscripts, which is kind of expected. But along with this, his entire room was covered in occult symbolism, secret code, references to the Bible, alchemy, demonology, Hermetism, Leonardo da Vinci, and also contained a statue of Giordano Bruno and a painting of Bruno himself beside an alien. As I'm showing you these videos, I'd love for you to comment what your initial thoughts are on this. And obviously, as you can see, there's no furniture in his room either. And Bruno also left behind a guide for people to translate his works and what he was trying to say to the world. An example of one of these snippets is, "It is easy to accept what you have been taught since childhood and what is wrong. It is difficult as an adult to understand that you were wrongly taught what you suspected was correct since you were a child. In other words, if you fit into the system, your behavior will be determined making you at mercy of beliefs already provided and well established in dogmas and rituals with the masses. It kind of seems like, this is just me putting my own thoughts in there, but it kind of seems like what every teenager thinks, except in much more advanced terminology. All right, now I want to talk a little bit more about the statue because there are some interesting facts here. The statue was of Giordano Bruno, like I said, and he was a Dominican friar, a philosopher, a poet, and a cosmological theorist, and he lived in 16th century Italy. Giordano Bruno had a lot of theories about the cosmos and about extraterrestrial life, and he would speak out about aliens and everything all the time. Now, the creepy thing is Giordano Bruno looks a lot like Bruno Borges himself. They have similar eyes, similar nose, just like general facial structure. They look like the same person almost, just in different eras. Not to mention they also have Bruno in their name. And even further into the creepy side of it, Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake due to him speaking out about free thought, aliens, the cosmos, everything like this. They didn't want him to be talking about this kind of stuff in that day and age, so they killed him. And it's thought that Bruno Borges believes that he is the reincarnated version of Giordano Bruno. Side note on this, I am absolutely fascinated with reincarnation and past life memories and stories and everything. Let me know if anyone else is interested in that, because I would love to do a video on that at some point. Like hearing certain stories from people where as children they can remember past life memories, and when they go into investigating, like the person they think they were actually exists and there's no other way for them to possibly know and stuff like it. It is actually insane. Anyway, back to Giordano and Bruno Borges. There is a psychological phenomenon called nominative determinism. Psychological in simple terms, just refers to a person's preference for things that have anything to do with their name. So for example, if you were to ask me what my favorite letter is, I would say the letter K. Genuinely, because I love the way it looks and I love the way it sounds. There's a brand called Kiki K and there's 4 Ks in it, and I just think that is so beautiful. And it's not consciously because I know there's a K in it and my name starts with K. It's an unconscious preference for things similar to your name. So it makes sense that I like the letter K. And obviously the other example would be Bruno Borges. Why would he be so fascinated with Giordano Bruno? Well, he has his whole name in it, Bruno. But the day Bruno disappeared, he left his house around lunchtime and got a taxi to this hotel. But this wasn't just any old hotel. Well, it was, but behind the hotel, there was like a forested area, and it was known in the area for being like a spiritual place to go. Like people would go for spiritual practices, and sometimes it was used as a shrine, so that was quite interesting. And I will just say, when the family were being interviewed and stuff about Bruno's disappearance, they weren't really all that panicked because of the state he left everything in. Like they saw his bedroom and they were like, yeah, this was intentional, like he's gonna come back, surely. Like they expected him to come back. So into the theories, I am kind of going to breeze over them a little bit. So obviously, first of all, we have the spiritual retreat theory. I mean, with what he left behind in his room, the encrypted manuscripts and symbols and everything, and the fact that he went to a hotel where just behind this hotel there's a spiritual area, it kind of seemed like, okay, maybe he's just doing something spiritual, some kind of retreat. The second theory is that he had a psychological break of some sort, or perhaps maybe some level of schizophrenia. I did see some people saying on Reddit and everything that with the people they know that have schizophrenia, that it really reminded them of it. So perhaps it could have been something like that. And the third theory is one that any of you conspiracy theorists will probably favor, and that's that he basically went on a trip with aliens. Because obviously there were a lot of writings about aliens in his work, not to mention the painting of him with an alien. So it was kind of thought that maybe this was like a consensual alien abduction. Because, what's up? Alright, I'm gonna fast forward 5 months now, because 5 months, or at least just under 5 months after Bruno's disappearance, he came home. He basically said that he left to go on a mystical journey of the soul and like a spiritual quest, and that he wanted to get away from society because society was plagued with a lack of empathy, which kind of made me think, like, what happened to you? And I don't even mean that in like a condescending or a funny way or anything. I just mean, like, what actually happened to you for you to think that society is so sick and lacks so much empathy? And it actually turns out that the first volume of Bruno's writings ended up on the weekly bestseller list, so they actually did really well, and he earned a bit of money from it as well. But then it was found that one of Bruno's friends was in possession of these contracts, which would essentially just be like an agreement to split the money from the book sales. So it kind of seems like this was all just a publicity stunt, and that it was just a tactic to drive sales of his writings and everything, which, I mean, makes sense, but that just leaves me thinking, like, wow. I mean, a lot of salespeople will say things like whatever it takes and stuff to hit their targets and everything, but Bruno took that entirely to the next level. And to be honest, I kind of applaud him for that. Like, however, in contrast to this, there were a lot of, I guess, signs that would tell you that he came from quite a rich family. So, for example, his family had a restaurant with over 150 seats. His dad's business has like 50,000 check-ins on Facebook, and of course his cousin just had an extra 6 grand to give him. So if they're really that rich, why go to all this trouble? Or is it just that because they're rich, they've had to push themselves in a certain way and that's a learned behavior? Or is it not about the money, but it's genuinely about what he wanted to teach humanity and society? Or maybe it genuinely was a spiritual journey. There's a lot of debate about all this online, and I'd love to hear your opinions on it, so leave them in the comments below. Also then, I was like, where was Bruno's furniture though? Like, where did all that go during all this when he was transforming his room? And it turns out they were just in a friend's basement. Now, Bruno doesn't exactly speak out about where he was during these 5 months. Part of me wants to believe it was a spiritual journey and he was just somewhere in the wilderness. But another part of me is like, well, clearly his friends were very supportive of his endeavors and his works and everything, and maybe he was just hiding out in one of their houses. Also, side note, I am absolutely shocked that nobody saw him removing a bed from his room. Like, all this furniture, yeah, but a bed? And that brings me to the end of this case. Let me know what you thought about it. I know a lot of people were quite irritated by this case because he just wasted so much police time and resources and everything, but what do you think? And now Bruno is of course safe. He initially couldn't move back into his actual house because they were getting too many visitors because of all the drama that this caused, but I'm not sure if he lives there now, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. The main thing is that he's safe. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like. This was actually requested by Lee, so thanks so much, Lee, for sending this in. And also, don't forget to turn on the notifications. So there's a little bell beside the subscribe button, and if you click that, you'll be notified whenever I upload. So my Instagram is katephilpott_YT. Sandy, have you got anything you want to plug? I upload every Friday at 3 p.m. and I look forward to discussing this one in the comments with you because, whew! Again, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!